Hi, this is Julien Stoutt, licensed personal trainer, licensed PE teacher, world record powerlifter, here to take the fear out of fitness and help you be the best you. Guys, I'm back. I know I've been gone for a little bit because I just had surgery on Friday on my hip. I tore my labrum in my hip and I needed surgery on it or else it was not going to get any better and I was not going to improve on my abilities to perform, and therefore I needed to get this done as soon as humanly possible. The opportunity came up and I took it when I had the opportunity. So I'm resting. I am sitting here on YouTube with you right now, but I am able to move about my house safely as long as I have something to either hold on to or I have some ambulatory aid such as a crutch or a cane. I should be strong enough by next week to actually walk with under my own power completely, but I still have to be careful on how I move over the next 4 months. So I'm looking forward to my recovery and my ability to perform at a level that I expect myself to perform at this point in time. But I further digress because today's topic is actually about fad diets and basically essentially low carb diets. Now, understand that cutting carbohydrates at certain times is a practice that bodybuilders have done over decades, and it obviously works when applied properly. But the thing is, most people don't apply these techniques properly. And since the 1960s, the Atkins diet has been around to essentially eliminate the use of carbs because it was believed that carbohydrates is the cause of obesity. And the truth is, there's some truth to it, but it's not exactly true. The problem is, what most people don't realize is that it's not necessarily the carbs that are the problem. It's the combinations of your carbs, fats, and your proteins all together adding up to be more than what your body needs to function. Therefore, whatever is left over, your body converts into fat. And typically, it usually ends up being your sugar if it is consumed in excess. Believe it or not, studies have shown that your body does utilize as much carbohydrates as your body as you put into your body, so long as it meets the energy requirements that you need on a daily basis. However, most people exceed that by hundreds, if not thousands of calories. All right. And Atkins diet was actually meant to be a stopgap to getting you back to normal. So what that means is that the Atkins diet was meant to be used as a stopgap. You're supposed to try to lower your carbs to an extremely low amount until your body metabolizes fat to the point where it's the only source of energy that it's using, which is called ketosis. Then, as a result, once you have achieved this weight loss, you are supposed to reintroduce proper nutritional carbohydrates back into your diet so that way you can function as you would normally. It is not meant to be a long-term alternative to normal eating. If you don't believe me, I'll have to show you via the internet. So what I will do here is get on the screen here and show you what is the Atkins diet. Cardiologist Robert Atkins created the Atkins diet in the 1960s. He believed carbohydrates, not fat, were responsible for health problems and weight gain. As a result, his diet focused on eating plenty of fat, some protein, and very few carbs. The goal of the Atkins diet is to change your metabolism. I'm going to repeat that. Change your metabolism. You burn stored body fat rather than carbs for energy. And you could do this if you follow the diet closely, but it's not for everyone and there may be health risks involved. So, as you can see, that's what it does, right? So, I'm going to move on. So there's 4 phases of the Atkins diet, and I'm going to go through them all because this is the part where a lot of people get it wrong. phase 1 is you eat 20 grams of net carbs a day. For reference, the average banana has 24 net carbs and the potato has 31. The goal of phase 1 is to produce fast weight loss. Phase 2. This phase allows up to 30 net carbs, which means they increase your carbs. You still lose weight, although not as quickly as you did in phase 1. Phase 3, you can increase your net carbs by up to 10 grams per week. Continue this phase until you reach your target weight, which means you're going to increase it. You're 30, then all of a sudden week 2, the week 2 in phase 3, you're up to 50. Week 3, you're up to 60. Week 4, you're up to 70, and so forth and so forth. Phase 4, this is the maintenance phase. So assuming that you went through this properly, we're assuming phase 4 actually starts 9 weeks after phase 2. So this is the maintenance phase where you can eat up to 120 net carbs a day as long as you stay at your target weight. Here's the problem with this. First problem is your target weight. What is your target weight? Do you know? Do you know what your target weight is? I don't think you understand when we get through all of these things, your target weight. We're assuming that your target weight is based on your BMI, right? Remember what I told you, BMI is garbage. BMI is BS because it is not a direct indicator for you as the individual. It is it's a macrocosm of society as a whole, as opposed to being a measurement for the individual, right? So let's say, what if your goal weight is 170 pounds? By the way, that's more than likely for some people. So if your goal weight is 170 pounds and you're eating 480 calories in carbohydrates, I'm sure, almost certain, that you're going to need a lot more calories than 480 calories. And since the rest of it is coming from protein and fat, and you're in a state of ketosis, you're not going to get the full benefit of fat burning. You're actually changing your metabolism. Your metabolism is meant to use carbohydrates as the fuel to burn everything. All right? No, you don't have to do insane amounts of cardio, but you do have to be active. And if you are active, it will then benefit you greatly. So don't believe me on that. Let's move on. So, a research team led by Dr. Kevin Hall of NIH National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases conducted a study under carefully controlled conditions to determine the way the body responds to fat versus carbohydrate restriction. So I'm going to skip a little bit of this. The team enrolled 10 men, 9 women with obesity, 19 people. The participants averaged 35 years of age, did not have diabetes, and had an average body mass index of 36. 30 or greater is considered obese. Now, again, technically, that's body fat percentage, right? For the first 5 days of each day, the volunteers were given a balanced diet, 50% carbohydrates, 35% fat, 15% protein, or about 2,700 calories a day, which matched energy expenditure over the next 6 days. They received a diet of 30% fewer calories. The amount of protein remained the same. So meaning they lowered your fat and lowered your carbohydrates by 15% each. On one visit, the calorie decrease came solely by cutting carbohydrates. On the other visit, the calories were cut only from dietary fat. The diets were given random order within 2 weeks between visits. So they fluctuated between them. While in the metabolic ward, the participants walked on a treadmill for 60 minutes each day. Walked. Part of the time, they resided in a metabolic chamber to measure their energy expenditure and the relative balance of fat and carbohydrates they used to produce energy. The scientists found that what participants ate the reduced carb diet, they lowered production of the hormone insulin. This diet caused a shift in metabolism. Participants increased fat oxidation and decreased carbohydrate oxidation, while on the reduced carb diet, they lost about 53 grams of body fat per day. When the participants consumed a reduced fat diet, they had no observed changes in insulin production or fat burning. However, they lost 89 grams of a day of body fat, 68% more than when they cut the same number of calories from carbohydrates. The researchers note that given the short time frame of the study, it would be difficult to extrapolate the findings to a longer time frame. More research is needed to assess the long-term effects of fat and carb reduction in the body. So, what does that mean? It means that in that short period of time, 2 to 4 weeks, you actually burned more fat when you reduced your body fat percentage, your dietary fat, than when you reduced your carbohydrates. All right? Excuse me. Now, the other factor, your muscle. Your muscle mass is much more needed. Therefore, you need to have carbs to build muscle and prevent muscle loss. So I'm going to read this from InBody. InBody is a company that actually specializes in finding out what your body fat percentage is through bioelectrical impedance and utilizing cutting edge technology in order to figure out what your body composition really is. So let's get to it. All right. So when it comes to health and fitness, there's a lot of bad advice out there. There are 2 common misconceptions about body composition and diet. Decrease carbohydrates for weight loss, only increase protein for muscle growth. However, these 2 rules of thumb are not absolute truths. Carbohydrates and proteins are nutrients that both play important roles in body composition, yet they both have stereotypes that aren't 100% accurate. As a matter of fact, here's the truth. Something that I want y'all to listen to before I get into it. Number 1, your muscles stores sugar or glycogen. All right. So whenever you eat carbs, your muscle stores the glycogen. So the bigger your muscles, the more glycogen you're going to need, or else you're not going to function. And therefore, the cellular structure of your muscles is going to break down over time if you don't ingest the right amount of carbohydrates. All right. So I'm going to get back into it real quick. Hold on. If you want to gain muscle mass, then yes, you will need a lot of protein, but you also need a fair amount of carbohydrates, and that shouldn't be shocking or scary. Protein automatically gets the credit for building strong muscles, but let's not forget your carb intake. Depending on your body composition goals, you need to adjust the amount of and type of carbohydrates you consume. When someone wants to lose excess weight, the first thing they do, or the first thing they're told to do by their friend who acts as their personal trainer, is to adopt a low-carb diet. This can definitely lead to fat loss, but cutting carbs shouldn't be a hard and fast rule in body composition, especially when it comes to gaining muscle. Carbs usually aren't restricted if muscle growth is the goal. It seems like weightlifters and athletes know some things about carbohydrates that the general public doesn't. Carbs aren't the enemy to achieving your body composition goals. A lot like a lot of things in life, there are carbs that will help you reach the goals and carbs that will prevent you from reaching your goals. Out of the various types of carbs, complex carbohydrates play a large important role in building muscle mass. So, what we're dealing with here is simple. So it says, think about it. Building anything takes a lot of time, energy, and resources. Building muscle is no different. The body requires a lot of energy to power through workouts that result in bigger, stronger muscles. Where does the body get most of that energy? Usually from carbs. Out of all the energy sources in the human body, researchers found that the carbohydrates are the main source of energy in the human diet. This means that carbs aren't just for athletes. Carbs are a great source of energy for anyone's daily activities, including exercise. You can think of carbohydrates as a source of fuel for the body, otherwise known as calories, as we've previously learned, there are two types of carbohydrates, simple and complex. Simple carbs are quick, sporadic sources of energy, while complex carbs are a good source of steady energy. If you ever heard of an athlete eat candy before a game or training session, that's because simple carbs like white sugar are one of the fastest ways to spike energy. However, this energy kick cannot be maintained for long. It's just like your energy systems. I'll get into that later. Complex carbs may not be readily available for immediate energy as simple carbs are, but they're more efficient and healthier. Complex carbs provide sustainable energy, which means energy is constant and there's no crash like with simple carbs. Isn't protein more important than carbs for muscle building? When you think of building muscle, you may think of high protein diet. Protein is extremely important in building muscle, especially the amino acids, help repair and maintain muscle tissue, especially your immune system. I added that. Essentially, protein helps you recover from your workouts because muscles slightly tear during exercise, micro tears. If protein is so important, why put emphasis on carbs? Well, complex carbohydrates don't get enough credit when it comes to important roles that it plays in muscle gains. Carbs help regulate glycogen repletion. You may have heard of glycogen stores before, but glycogen is a form of glucose that is stored for later use. When the body needs energy, glycogen kicks into gear and acts as a ready fuel source. Carbohydrates and glycogen go hand in hand because carbs are stored as glycogen. When carbs are low, glycogen stores are low. When carbs are consumed, glycogen stores are full. Since glycogen is used for energy, it is important to replenish those stores, which is why researchers recommend to consume carbohydrates immediately following exercise. Carbs prevent muscle degradation. One concern about low-carb diets is muscle loss. A Netherlands study compared low-carb diet to other diets and found that restricting carbs results in protein loss, gluconeogenesis. This is because the body restricting carbs causes an increase in the amount of nitrogen that gets excreted by the body. Nitrogen is a component of amino acids, the stuff that forms muscle proteins. Therefore, nitrogen loss indicates that muscles are breaking down. Funny, here it is. Carbs help muscles recover from exercise. The role that carbs play in recovery goes back to glycogen stores. Immediately after exercise, athletes need to replenish the glycogen stores in order to prevent glycogen depletion. Glycogen depletion, when glycogen stores have run out, causes gluconeogenesis. Glucose, neo meaning new, genesis meaning beginning. This is when the body forms glucose from new sources to compensate for the lack of glucose from carbohydrates. When this happens, the body turns to sources like fat and protein to fill this need. Protein acts as the last line of defense when energy is required, meaning that energy accessibility is running very low. When the body breaks down protein to make more glucose, it takes from the muscle, causing them to waste away. So, this in of itself shows you that low-carb diets not necessarily be the end-all, be-all to your success in quote-unquote weight loss. Because remember what I told you, your body fat composition is what makes you healthy or not healthy. So if you lose weight, which is in the form of muscles because you have depleted your glycogen stores, you are no different in obesity than you were at your highest weight. Because while you're losing body fat, you're also losing muscle on a low-carb diet. So therefore, your body fat ratio might change slightly, but then also your metabolism suffers because there's no more massive amounts of no more large amounts of protein or muscle to continue the process of metabolism. So therefore, your metabolism slows the less muscle you have. So therefore, let's say you were at 1700 calories when you were at your heaviest, quote unquote heaviest. But then as you started to lose this body mass, you lost muscle and fat. So therefore, yes, you are now down to a slim trim 140 pounds, right? However, in the process of doing that, you have fallen into the trap of now that your body composition has not changed dramatically. It is dropped from, let's say, from a 36% down to a 25%. Yes, you're healthier, but guess what? You are now doomed to eating smaller amounts of food for the rest of your life, because now your muscles are smaller as well, which means your metabolism is slowed, which means you don't require as much energy to maintain yourself, which means that 1,700 calories you used to eat now is diminished down to 1,400, if not lower, which means the minute you eat anything more than 1,400 calories, you are going to gain more body fat. Does that make sense? So when you're going through all of these things, I want you guys to understand that also these alternative sweeteners are not meant to be used in excess. You like drinking Pepsi? Yeah, you can switch to Diet Pepsi, but also you still are going to have to change the habit of drinking soda regularly on repeat, because whether you're drinking it in diet form or whether you're drinking it in its pure form, neither is going to be good for you long term. So my advice to you is that if you have a habit of drinking soda in general, find a way to drink less of it, drink a diet alternative in certain periods of time, drink the normal one in certain periods of times, and then wean yourself down to something as simple as seltzer water if the fizz is what you enjoy the most. If it's the sugar, I'm sorry for you. You're going to have to do better with your dietary choices, because your recreational eating is not benefiting you long term. All right. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to comment below. I'm glad to be back. So there'll be more coming your way in the near future. So have a nice day and be the best you.